چھِ ژور ماٹہِ کٔٹ آمژٕ اَسہِ چھِ ٹیٖم
that Jammu and Kashmir is not integral part of India. It is a disputed territory, and for the permanent settlement, the Jammu and Kashmir people should be given right to self-determination so that they will decide their future.
There is absolutely no democracy here. There is no rule of law here. There is no accountability here. It's not a secret that, the highest concentration of troops anywhere in the world is in Jammu and Kashmir. And these troops are not here to fight militancy, but they are here to fight the people.
It has been a disputed territory in 1947, and it continues to be so, notwithstanding any amendment that is attempting to be made relating to Article 370.
India has failed to, kill the spirit of the Kashmiri people. So the secret to it is our faith. It's like we're unflinching faith in God Almighty.
The saga of Kashmiri's sufferings is spread over a period of more than 7 decades. It started with the landing of Indian Army troops in Jammu and Kashmir on October 27 in 1947. India on this day forcibly occupied Jammu and Kashmir against the will of the Kashmiri people. And in total disregard to the Independence Act, the territory's forcible occupation by India is based on an illegal instrument of accession signed on 26 October 1947 by Maharaja Hari Singh, who had fled to New Delhi fearing an uprising by the Kashmiris, who had wanted to accede to Pakistan in October 1947.
International law tells us that if there is an instrument of accession, while you can in principle transfer the title, but if there is a contrary or a counter offer or a counter condition added to the instrument of accession by the Governor General himself saying this is subject to ascertainment of the wishes of the people of Kashmir, then that instrument of accession is not a complete document. It does not transfer title. And then the whole thing is taken to UN Security Council under the UN Charter, and Security Council reviews the entire dispute, the territory, the matters associated with that, the issues of Kashmiris, their rights, and comes out with series of resolutions. And these resolutions create a very clear lien of the UN Security Council and its connectivity with the Kashmir dispute directly. These resolutions, most of them, in my opinion, have been passed under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, which means they are binding in nature. They have to be upheld. None of them has been withdrawn. None of them has been recalled. None of them has been repealed. So they still hold the field. They are a legal documentation of the UN Charter framework. And they give that right to the Kashmiris, that their right relating to the territory is subject to ascertainment of their will under the UN Security Council framework, which has not happened.
Kashmiris never accepted Indian hegemony. There were always a struggle against the Indian occupation. It was a political struggle against Indian occupation always. But Indians always suppressed those political struggles in Kashmir for right self-determination by one way or the other way, putting the leaders into jails, killing the student leaders in different ways. From 1989 till date, nearly 97,000 people have been killed in Kashmir. You will see more than 10,000 people have been enforcibly disappeared in Kashmir. You will see the mass graves, unmarked mass graves in different parts of the Kashmir, numbering over 8,000 unmarked mass graves. Likewise, 11,000 women in Kashmir were either sexually harassed or they were brutally gang raped by the Indian Army in siege and search operation and crackdowns in different ways.
You go back in history, 1947, 48, the Jammu massacre, it was spearheaded by the RSS and the Dogra forces. And the same RSS is in power right now. And now internationally also how the HSS, their sister organization, is harassing, is attacking is threatening Muslims of India and all those moderate voices of India, be it the Sikh community or even the Kashmiris that have families within Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that they will attack their families. So the harassment, the torture, or the threats level has expanded internationally.
The Armed Forces Special Powers Act grants Indian security forces wide-ranging powers in the region, and it has been often criticized for enabling impunity and inhibiting accountability.
2010, then in 2016, we had another uprising in Kashmir after the killing of the Burhan Muzaffar Wani, a young Kashmiri boy, when Indians were trying to say that there's everything normal in Kashmir, there's no militancy, we have done away with it, and it's all done. That young kid, he used social media to challenge the Indian hegemony at that time, and he became a household name in Kashmir. After that, we saw that crowds of people coming out in length and breadth of Jammu and Kashmir to pay the homage to that young man. And at that time, Indians again used the brute force. Ballots were used shamelessly by Indians, and it was at that time when New York Times reported that it is the year of dead eyes in Kashmir. We saw that hundreds of people were blinded by those ballots. Thousands were injured by those ballots, and nearly 141 people were killed in that uprising in Kashmir, which happened in 2016.
On 5th August 2019, Indian government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution, revoking the special autonomous status of Jammu and Kashmir, that allowed the state its own constitution, a separate flag, and independence over all matters except a few. Article 35A of the Indian Constitution granted the state government of Jammu and Kashmir the authority to define who qualified as a permanent resident of the state.
The demographic changes which Indians are trying to do and trying to dislocate the population are absolutely in violation of international law relating to occupation. Occupation is a very specific regime where an occupying power sits in an occupying supervisory capacity over the local population. The law of occupation under IHL, which is international humanitarian law, is you cannot bring any demographic changes. You cannot deport local people. You cannot change the way they are managing their ordinary life. You cannot alter the currencies. You cannot bring any material changes. So occupying power has it is just taking care. It's a caretaker framework at best, which has an interim mandate, but it cannot undertake very important decisions relating to population, investments, and so on. And that is the reason why these moves, which have been done by the Indian side about changes of population and demography and change of halka bandi and so on, it is in violation of the law of occupation.
The ruling party BJP plans to settle outsiders in Jammu and Kashmir, potentially leading to ethnic cleansing and the creation of new conflicts to control the demographic superiority of the Muslim population in the region. In the aftermath, the illegal Union Territory government issued a staggering number of domicile certificates, totaling up to 3.5 million, to outsiders in Jammu and Kashmir.
They introduced nearly 200 the federal laws that were in India, not in occupied Kashmir. Those laws were introduced in Indian occupied Kashmir by these laws and by other amended laws which were amended. Those laws which are amended and introduced, it counts about 800 laws and rules which were regulations which have been done there. And these were all done to, one, to change the demographic of Jammu and Kashmir. They issued the new domicile certificates to the non-residents, and at that time nearly 1.7 million Indians were eligible for that. That means 1/4 of the population of Jammu and Kashmir was eligible at that time. And then they gave also to the Indian Armed Forces the same right. So when the Indian Armed Forces, you will know already more than 100,000 Indian Armed Forces are there. If they are allowed to do it, it has already changed the demography in Kashmir. And again, we can see that delimitation. First was the issuing the domicile certificate, then they did a delimitation. They established a delimitation commission, which was again illegal because Indian Parliament, its own constitution, has restricted the constitution of delimitation till 2026. But again, the Indian government did it only for the Jammu and Kashmir, taking away the natural resources of Kashmir. Already, each and every natural resources for which extraction of natural resources, all those goes to the Indian companies, not to the local Kashmiri companies. And they gave them right to purchase the property. It's like the same way they will purchase the property, they will have now the right to have the jobs over there, scholarships there, and this is in other way a settler colonialism.
One of the things that they've done is they have begun to expropriate agricultural properties, agricultural lands that have long been the ancestral homeland of tribes, of the Kashmiri tribes. And the Indian Army has now begun to expropriate these lands for long-term, not buying them, expropriating, for long-term military installations, shooting ranges for garrisoning its troops, for intimidating and terrorizing the population.
The abrogation of Article 370 has also had a significant impact on the region's economy and employment prospects. The unemployment rate has surged to 16.2%, as reported by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, which is more than double the unemployment rate of the Indian Union, which stands at 6.7%. The economic repercussions have been acutely felt by the people of Jammu and Kashmir, with around 500,000 people losing their jobs following the revocation of the special status.
The way Kashmiri people are not just being killed, shot, raped, abducted, prisoned, but at the same time their economic rights, their right to ownership, everything has been snatched. So naturally the RSS brigade and the fascist regime of India, what suits them right now, looking at the poverty within India, that there's no food on the table, the only thing which can win maximum anti-Muslim and anti-Kashmir votes is by using the religious card, and it plays really well for them both ways if you look at it.
But when you want to sever a relationship which has been entered into, you must ultimately seek the opinion of the people. Because people are central to this decision, not the Union of India. It goes counter to the very grain of Article 370.
Recently, an Indian Supreme Court bench has asked the Narendra Modi-led government about the time needed to restore statehood of occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as enshrined in the country's constitution.
The most persuasive voices against 5th August 2019 presidential order are coming from within India. And no wonder the Indian petitioners and the lawyers have taken the matter to Indian Supreme Court. And if you recall the hearing of that Supreme Court proceedings, you will recognize there are very cogent arguments being pleaded by those who are challenging 5th August 2019 presidential order on the grounds that it is ultra-vires even the Constitution of India. We from the outside, as a state of Pakistan and everybody else, thinks it is in violation of international law as well. So then there are two tiers of illegality. Under domestic Indian law, which is the Constitution of India, it is a violation. And then under international law, there is an outright violation because there is a UN resolutions under the UN Charter and they need to be upheld. And if at all you want to do any development relating to any aspect of this matter, you have to approach the UN Security Council, which India has not.
More than 20 petitions were filed questioning the constitutional validity of the Indian government's August 2019 decision to abrogate Article 370.
History of the Indian Supreme Court, Indian courts to the Kashmiris is witness to it. They have never been fair to the people of Kashmir. We have seen the case of Maqbul Bhat, how he was hanged. Then we have seen the case of Afzal Guru, how he was hanged. Afzal Guru, an innocent man, just make a scapegoat for it, and the Indian government, Indian Supreme Court at that time in their verdict said that though there is no prima facie evidence against him, but we are giving him the highest to satisfy the general conscience of the Indian public. So the Supreme Court is satisfying the general conscience of the Indian public not satisfying the justice, not the rule of law.
One thing which is very positive about them, that no matter what they go through, they never give up on their birthright. That is something where India has been miserably defeated. No matter what they do with our Lal Chowk or whatever, they're trying to change the dynamics, but sentiment has never died down. We need an urgent resolution being tabled from the UN to stop this demography changes and to conduct a fresh population census over there.
The Indian-controlled Kashmir stands at historical moment. Kashmiris have demonstrated that they reject India's control over their territory. Indian military presence in Kashmir may have helped it to control the territory, but it has also invalidated its claim to it.